There's an ancient principle that samurai masters drilled into their students before their first real battle. And the absence of this principle in your daily life might be the invisible chain keeping you from achieving everything you're capable of. We live in the age of unlimited access. Courses, coaches, blueprints, frameworks, step-by-step guides. Today, anyone with internet access could theoretically learn to build $1 million business, master a new language, or transform their body. Yet most people don't. With infinite knowledge at our fingertips, why do so many remain stuck? Because the problem isn't what you don't know. The problem is what you can't stop thinking about. You want to launch that business, but you spend 6 months perfecting the business plan. You dream of switching careers, but you spend years weighing every possible outcome. You have a creative project burning inside you, but you analyze it into ashes before it ever sees daylight. And then comes the question that haunts you at 3 a.m. Why can't I just do it? Here's the truth. You're not lazy. You're not lacking ambition. You're not even lacking courage. You're overthinking. And overthinking isn't a personality flu, it's a modern epidemic. Studies show we make between 400 to 1,000 conscious decisions daily. Each one drains mental energy. Each one requires analysis, comparison, prediction. Now multiply that by your fears, your what-ifs, your need for guarantees. The result? Analysis paralysis. You're so busy planning how to live that you forget to actually live. But the Japanese discovered the antidote to this curse centuries ago. They called it Mushin, which translates to mind without mind, or no mind. Don't let the name fool you. This isn't about meditation retreats or mystical enlightenment. This is about something far more practical and infinitely more powerful. Acting without the interference of overthinking. Takuan SH, the legendary Zen monk who advised samurai, wrote, "The mind must not stop anywhere. When it stops, the flow is interrupted, and this interruption is injurious to the well-being of the mind. In a sword duel, if you pause to analyze your opponent's stance, you die. There's no time for let me calculate the optimal counter move. You simply act or you fall. Your life operates under the same brutal law. Every opportunity has an expiration date. You can either act or think until the door closes. Most choose the latter. Not because they want to, but because that's what they've been trained to do. School taught you to analyze. The corporate world taught you to mitigate risk. Society taught you to fear failure above all else. Now you're trapped in an endless loop. Research, analyze, plan, doubt, repeat, but never act. Until all that remains is the saddest phrase in human language, "What if I had tried?" But there's an escape route. It doesn't require thinking, or it requires thinking less. It requires understanding machinist state, where you act without hesitation, flow without resistance, and live without the prison of endless mental simulation. Impossible? Perhaps, but it works. And I'm going to show you exactly how. But first, comment below. What's the one thing you want to do, but keep getting stuck just thinking about it? Starting a business, a career leap, creative project. Share it below. Now let me tell you a story that will change how you see overthinking forever. Chapter 1. The man who never beds. You know that person everyone believes is destined for greatness? The one with natural talent, the one who solves impossible problems, whose ideas everyone respects. Yet somehow, they never move forward. This was Takeshi Yamamoto. Takeshi was 32 years old, MBA from a prestigious university, senior strategist at a Tokyo consulting firm. When clients faced impossible challenges, they called Takeshi. When teams hit walls, Takeshi broke through them. When negotiations stalled, Takeshi found the invisible solution. He had something you can't learn from textbooks: strategic intuition. Everyone saw it except him, because Takeshi suffered from the curse we're discussing today. He overthought everything, not other people's problems his own. A former professor once suggested he start his own consulting firm. Takeshi spent 4 months building the perfect business model, pricing strategy, client acquisition funnels, competitive positioning, cash flow projections, risk mitigation frameworks. When he finally felt ready, the market had shifted. His professor had found another protege. The opportunity had evaporated. Another time, a former classmate invited him to co-found a tech startup. They needed someone with strategic vision. Takeshi spent 10 weeks analyzing market viability, technical feasibility, exit strategies, founder equity splits, legal structures. By the time he finished his analysis, his classmate had found another co-founder. The startup raised Series A funding 6 months later. Without Takeshi, he wasn't indecisive. He was imprisoned by his own mind. Was he afraid? Absolutely. But fear wasn't what stopped him. It was his attempt to eliminate fear through thinking. And the more he thought, the more reasons he found not to act. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I lose everything I've built? These questions have no answers. They're questions about a future that doesn't exist yet. But Takeshi believed that if he thought hard enough, long enough, he could control that future. Spoiler, you can't. Nobody can. And that's exactly what Mushin came to teach him. Takeshi's life continued in this pattern. Opportunity after opportunity, each one analyzed into oblivion. He became known as the smartest man who never did anything. His colleagues advanced. His friends built empires. His former students became his professional superiors. And Takeshi stayed exactly where he was safe, stable, and slowly dying inside, until he met Hiroshi. Here, Chapter 2. The encounter with the master. For 30 to 7:30, Hiroshi Tanaka was 68 years old. His former corporate executive turned kendo master. He ran a small dojo in Kyoto, nothing fancy, just tatami mats and bamboo swords. But the dojo had a reputation. People went in confused and came out transformed. Takeshi met Hiroshi at a corporate leadership retreat. Takeshi was there as a facilitator. Hiroshi was there as a guest speaker on traditional leadership principles. But Hiroshi didn't lecture. He demonstrated. He invited volunteers for a kendo demonstration. Takeshi, always the observer, stayed seated. But Hiroshi pointed directly at him. You, the one overthinking whether to volunteer. Come. The room erupted in nervous laughter. Takeshi felt his face flush. He stood and approached. Hiroshi handed him a bamboo sword. Strike me. Takeshi hesitated. I don't know the proper form. Strike me, Hiroshi repeated calmly. Takeshi raised the sword, calculating angle, speed, appropriate force for a demonstration. Hiroshi's sword tapped Takeshi's ribs before he could complete the thought. Again, Hiroshi said. Takeshi reset, this time trying to anticipate Hiroshi's counter. Tap ribs again. Again. Takeshi tried to outthink him, to find a strategic opening tap. Again. Tap. Again. Tap. After the 7th failed attempt, Takeshi lowered his sword, frustrated. How are you doing that? Hiroshi smiled. I'm not thinking. You are. The room went silent. Every time you raised your sword, Hiroshi continued, I saw you thinking, where should I strike? How fast? What will he do? Your mind was everywhere, except the present moment. And in that gap between thought and action, I simply moved. Takeshi felt something crack open inside him. In Kendo, we have a principle. Mushin known mind. When you face an opponent, if you think you've already lost, the body knows what to do. So the mind just needs to get out of the way. Hiroshi placed a hand on Takeshi's shoulder. You have great strategic skill. I watched you during the exercises today. But you use that skill on everyone except yourself. Why? Takeshi couldn't answer. The words stuck in his throat. Come to my dojo tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. I want to show you something. That night, Takeshi didn't sleep. Not from anxiety, from a strange sensation he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Chapter 3. The Prison of Preparation. Takeshi arrived at the dojo at 5:50 a.m. Hiroshi was already there, sweeping. Good, you came early to overthink what we'll do today. Takeshi laughed, despite himself. Maybe. Sit, Hiroshi said, gesturing to the tatami. They sat in silence for a moment, then Hiroshi asked, Why did you hesitate yesterday before striking me? I didn't want to do it wrong. And what is wrong in striking? I don't know the technique. I might hurt you by accident or look foolish. Ah, Hiroshi nodded. So you chose to do nothing perfectly, rather than something imperfectly. The words hit like a strike. This is your life pattern. Yes, Hiroshi continued. Every opportunity, you wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect certainty. And while you wait, life moves on without you. Takeshi felt his chest tighten. But what if I fail? You already are failing, Hiroshi said gently. A failure isn't trying and falling short. Failure is never trying at all, and leaves you with experience. The other leaves you with regret. Hiroshi stood and retrieved 2 swords. Today, you will learn Mushin. It's not as philosophize experience. For the next 2 hours, Hiroshi put Takeshi through drills. But these weren't about technique. They're about removing thought. Strike without deciding to strike, block without planning to block, move without choosing where to move. At first, Takeshi's analytical mind rebelled. How can I act without deciding? That makes no sense. But Hiroshi kept pushing. It's faster. Don't think. Just respond. Strike. Block. Strike. Block. Stop calculating. Flow. Strike. Block. Let the body lead. The mind follows. And then for just 3 seconds it happened. His body responded to Hiroshi's strike before his mind registered it. No analysis, no decision, just pure response. And in those 3 seconds, Takeshi felt something he'd forgotten existed. Freedom. When they finished, Takeshi was drenched in sweat and breathing hard. But his mind was clearer than it had been in years. What you just experienced, Hiroshi said, is Mushin. The state where action and thought are one. Where there is no gap between intention and execution. This is how samurai fought. This is how masters create. This is how you must live. But how do I apply this to business decisions? Takeshi asked. Life isn't a sword duel. Hiroshi smiled. Isn't it? Every opportunity is a duel. Every decision is a strike. You can hesitate and lose, or you can trust yourself and act. The principle is the same. He handed Takeshi a small card with Japanese calligraphy. Wusin Mushin. Keep this. And remember, the path is walked, not analyzed. Chapter 4. The Awakening of Action, 10:30 to 13:30. Takeshi left the dojo that morning, transformed, not enlightened, but shifted. He went home and did something he'd never done before. He acted without a complete plan. There was a business idea he'd been developing for 18 months, a consulting model for mid-sized companies stuck between growth stages. He had spreadsheets, market research, SWOT, analyzes everything except a single client. That afternoon, Takeshi did the unthinkable. He called a former client and pitched the idea. No polished deck, no rehearsed script, just a conversation. I have an idea I think could help companies like yours. Can I show you a rough prototype next week? His analytical mind screamed. You're not ready? What if they say no? What if it's not good enough? But he remembered Hiroshi's words. Strike without deciding to strike. The client said yes. Takeshi spent the next 5 days building the prototype, not perfecting it, building it. Templates. He borrowed frameworks, focused on function, not polish. The old Takeshi would have spent 5 months on this. The new Takeshi gave himself 5 days. When he presented it, the client had feedback. Lots of it. Some parts didn't work. Some assumptions were wrong. And Takeshi, for the first time in his career, didn't feel devastated. He felt engaged. This is fantastic feedback, he said. Give me 1 week to adjust, and we'll iterate. The client smiled. It's the fastest I've ever seen a consultant move. Within 3 months, Takeshi had signed 4 clients. Within 6 months, he'd left his corporate job. Within a year, he had a thriving boutique consultancy. He became smarter. Because he became free from the need to know everything before starting, free from the illusion of control, free to act, adjust, and advance. But the transformation wasn't just professional. Takeshi had always wanted to learn pottery, one of those someday dreams. He de-researched classes for years but never enrolled because he didn't have time to commit properly. One Saturday, he walked into a studio and signed up for a drop-in class. No research, no plan, just action. Clay didn't cooperate. His first bowl looked like a drunken pancake. He actually laughed at his own failure and tried again. By the end of the class, he'd made something recognizably bowl-shaped. It wasn't beautiful, but it existed. And existence, he realized, was the entire point. Mushin wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present, not some day-to-day. Chapter 5. The Pilgrimage, 1330 to 1636 months after their first meeting. Hiroshi invited Takeshi back to the dojo. You've made progress, Hiroshi said. But you're still thinking of Mushin as a technique, something you apply when needed. I want to show you people who live it. What do you mean? Taking a group to train with masters in the mountains. A week of immersion. swordsmiths, archers, tea masters, calligraphers, people who've spent lifetimes in Mushin. Will you come? Takeshi's old instinct kicked in. A whole week. I have client meetings, I need to prepare. What if then he caught himself? Yes. When do we leave? Hiroshi smiled. Good answer. They traveled to a remote mountain village in Gifu Prefecture, the kind of place not on any tourist map. 8 participants, 5 masters, 1 week of complete immersion. The first master they met was Kenji, an 81-year-old swordsmith. Takeshi watched him work, heating metal, hammering, folding, hammering again. No measurements, no blueprints. Just decades of embodied knowledge flowing through his hands. How do you know when the metal is ready? Takeshi asked. Kenji didn't look up. I don't know. But what if you're wrong? Then the sword tells me, and I adjust. Metal is honest, doesn't lie. Takeshi watched for 2 hours. Kenji never hesitated, never second-guessed. Every strike of the hammer was committed, total, complete. This, Hiroshi whispered, is Mushin in physical form. The next day, they trained with Yukiya Kaido, archery master. In Kaido, the process is ritualized. Positioning, breathing, drawing, holding, releasing. But Yuki taught them the final truth. You don't release the arrow, releases itself. What does that mean? One participant asked. It means when your mind interferes, when you think now, I will release, the shot goes wild.
Right.
But when you empty your mind and simply allow the natural conclusion of the draw, the arrow finds the target by itself. Takeshi tried 17 times. 17 times he thought his way into missing. On the 18th, exhausted and frustrated, he stopped trying to control the release. He simply drew, breathed, and allowed. The arrow struck the center. Yuki nodded. That is Mushin, not force, not control. Allowing, they spent evenings with Master Sato, a tea ceremony practitioner. Every movement precise yet effortless. Every gesture intentional yet unforced. People think tea ceremony is about following rules, Sato said. It's not. It's about being so present with each movement that the rules disappear. You don't think now I turn the cup? You simply turn the cup. And in that simplicity, there is perfection. Takeshi felt layers of conditioning peeling away. His whole life, he'd believed that thinking more meant performing better. These masters prove the opposite. Peak performance emerges when thinking disappears. On the final evening, Hiroshi gathered everyone around a fire. What you've learned this week isn't tricks or techniques, he said. It's a way of being. Mushin isn't something you do, something you stop doing. You stop interfering with your natural excellence. He looked at Takeshi. When you started your business, what percentage of your plan actually survived contact with reality? Takeshi laughed. Maybe 30%. Exactly, because reality doesn't follow your plan. Reality is. And Mushin is learning to flow with what is, rather than forcing what you think should be. That night under the stars, Takeshi felt something shift at a level deeper than thought. He wasn't becoming someone new. He was remembering who he'd been before the world taught him to overthink everything. Chapter 6. The Science Behind the Void, 1630 to 1930 now. You might be thinking, this sounds like mystical Eastern philosophy. Where's the proof? Here's the truth. Modern neuroscience confirms everything the samurai knew 400 years ago. Researchers at Johns Hopkins studied the brains of jazz musicians during improvisation, pure creative flow. They found something shocking. The prefrontal cortex shut down. This is the part of your brain responsible for self-monitoring, conscious planning, and analysis. When it deactivates, creativity explodes. The same pattern appears in elite athletes. During peak performance, brain scans showed decreased activity in analytical regions. The body knows what to do. Conscious mind just gets out of the way. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the 10,000-hour rule, the idea that mastery requires extensive practice. But here's what people miss. Those 10,000 hours aren't about thinking more. They're about thinking less. Practice embeds skills so deeply that they become automatic. A professional pianist doesn't think about finger placement. A master surgeon doesn't consciously recall anatomy. The knowledge has moved from conscious thought to embodied knowing. This is Mushin in neuroscientific terms. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second. But only 40 bits reach conscious awareness. It means 99.9996% of your processing happens below conscious thought. When you overthink, you're trying to force those 40 conscious bits to override 11 million unconscious bits. It's like trying to steer an ocean liner with a paddle. Dr. Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying flow states, moments of peak performance and satisfaction. His findings: flow occurs when challenge matches skill and when self-consciousness disappears. Translation: you perform best when you stop watching yourself perform. The samurai knew this as Mushin. Silicon Valley calls it being in the zone. Psychologists call it flow state.
Athletes call it playing unconscious.
Same truth, different languages. Peak performance requires less thinking, not more.
Here's the kicker.
Overthinking doesn't just slow you down. It actively makes you worse. Studies on decision fatigue show that the quality of your decisions deteriorates with each choice you make. By decision 100, you're significantly impaired compared to decision 1. And when you overthink every decision, analyzing, comparing, predicting, you drain your mental battery before you've accomplished anything. The samurai solution? Decide fast. Adjust fast. Move forward, not reckless, not ignorant. Decisive. Because in a sword fight, a slow decision is a wrong decision. And life operates under the same principle. The opportunity doesn't wait for your analysis to finish. The market doesn't pause while you build the perfect plan. The moment doesn't freeze while you calculate all possible outcomes. Life demands action, and Mushin is the art of giving it. Chapter 7. How to practice Mushin, okay? So you understand the concept. You see the neuroscience. You want to stop overthinking. How do you actually practice Mushin? Here are the 5 core practices. Practice 1. Stop seeking certainty. Seek clarity. Certainty is about the future. Will this work? Will I succeed? Will it be worth it? These questions are unanswerable. The future doesn't exist yet. Clarity is about the present. Why do I want this? What's the next physical action? Am I willing to try? These questions are answerable. You'll never be certain your business will succeed, but you can be clear about why you want to build it. You'll never be certain you'll master a new skill, but you can be clear about taking the first lesson. Certainty is an illusion that keeps you paralyzed. Clarity is a foundation that lets you move. Replace "am I sure" with "am I clear," and watch what happens. Practice 2. Train until you don't need to think. Mushin isn't about eliminating thought entirely. It's about moving knowledge from conscious to unconscious. When you first learn to drive, every action requires conscious attention. Turn signal, mirror check, brake pressure. It's exhausting. After 1,000 hours, you drive while having a conversation, sipping coffee, and planning your day. The skill has become embodied. The same applies to everything. Want to start a business? Don't wait until you've read every book. Start small, fail fast, and learn by doing. After 100 mistakes, you'll know more than 1,000 hours of reading could teach. Want to be a better communicator? Don't script every conversation. Have more conversations. Skill develops through repetition, not analysis. Competence isn't built in your head, it's built in your hands. Practice 3. Act small, but act fast. You don't need the perfect plan. You need the next step. Takeshi didn't launch a full consulting firm on day 1. He made one phone call to one client with one rough idea. That single action created momentum. Momentum created confidence. Confidence created results. The old way: spend 6 months planning everything. It's the Mushin way. Spend 6 hours planning the next move, then do it today, not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Today. Small actions compound faster than big plans. Practice 4. Accept error as feedback, not failure. Water doesn't fail when it hits a rock. It doesn't stop and think, maybe I'm not meant to flow this way. It simply flows around the obstacle. Mushin is fluid intelligence. When something doesn't work, you don't interpret it as personal inadequacy. You interpret it as data. That approach didn't work. What can I adjust? Not, I'm not good enough. But that method wasn't effective. One keeps you moving, the other keeps you stuck. The samurai didn't practice to never get hit. They practiced so that getting hit didn't stop them. Practice 5. Trust the process, not the outcome. Here's the ultimate paradox. The less you obsess over results, the better your results become. Why? Because outcome obsession creates performance anxiety. Anxiety activates the prefrontal cortex, the exact thing that blocks Mushin. When you focus on the process, on showing up, Taking action, improving incrementally results come as a natural byproduct. Takeshi didn't build his consultancy by obsessing over revenue targets. He built it by focusing on serving one client exceptionally well, then the next, then the next. The revenue followed. Master Kenji doesn't make swords by fixating on perfection. He makes them by honoring each strike of the hammer. The masterpiece emerges. Control the inputs. Release the outputs. The deepest paradox, now we arrive at the most profound truth of all. You cannot achieve Mushin, because you already are Mushin. Think about it. When you were a child, you didn't think about playing. You simply played. When you were fully absorbed in something you loved, you didn't try to focus. You simply were focused. When you experienced your peak creative moment, you weren't forcing it. You were allowing it. Mushin isn't something you learn. It's something you remember. It's about unlearning the overthinking that was conditioned into you. School taught you that thinking more means performing better. Corporate culture taught you that analysis equals intelligence. Social media taught you that everyone else has it figured out, so you better overthink until you do too. All lies. Your natural state, before all the conditioning, before all the fear, before all the voices, was Mushin. You were born flowing. Then the world taught you to freeze. Takeshi realized this 1 year after meeting Hiroshi. He was working on a complex client problem, the kind that used to send him into analysis spirals for weeks. But this time, he simply sat with the problem. No forcing, no frantic research, just presence. And within 30 minutes, the solution appeared. Not from thinking harder, from thinking less. He called Hiroshi to share the breakthrough. Hiroshi laughed. You think this is new? You've always had this capability? You've just learned to trust it? So I didn't gain anything? Takeshi asked. No, you lost something. You lost the interference. And in that loss, you found everything. This is the ultimate teaching. Mushin isn't about becoming someone extraordinary. It's about removing everything that prevents you from being your natural, extraordinary self. Now, Miyamoto Musashi wrote at the end of the book of 5 Rings, in strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distanced view of close things. He wasn't talking about eyesight. It was talking about perspective. When you're drowning in overthinking, the next step looks impossible. But when you enter Mushin, when you step back and see with clarity, the path becomes obvious. Not easy, but obvious. And once you see it, you simply walk it. So here's where we endure, where you begin. You now understand Mushin. Not as abstract philosophy, but as practical truth. You know the neuroscience. You know the practices. You know the paradox. Now comes the only question that matters. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you add it to your mental library of interesting concepts I'll think about someday? Or will you act? Because here is the brutal truth. You can understand every word of this video and still remain exactly where you are. Understanding doesn't change lives. Action does. Takeshi didn't transform because he learned about Mushin. He transformed because he practiced it. He took the uncomfortable action. He made the uncertain call. He launched the imperfect offer, and his life shifted. Not because the external world changed, because his relationship with action changed. He stopped waiting for readiness and started building it through doing. He stopped seeking certainty and started creating clarity. He stopped overthinking and started flowing. And you can do the same. Right now, there's something you want to do. You know what it is? It's been sitting in your mind for months, maybe years. That business idea, that career change, that creative project, that conversation you need to have. You've analyzed it from every angle. You've built scenarios. You've waited for the perfect moment. The perfect moment never came because it doesn't exist. The only moment that exists is now. Well, here's my final challenge to you. Within 24 hours of watching this video, take one action toward that thing. Not the whole plan, not the final product. One action. Make one phone call, send one email. Publish one rough draft. Have one difficult conversation. Sign up for one class. Just one action, today. Not because it's perfect, it's because it's movement. And movement, however small, breaks the paralysis. Movement creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates results. This is the way of Mushin. Not thinking your way into action. acting your way into clarity. The samurai didn't wait until they felt ready to fight. They trained until readiness became irrelevant, till action became instinct. You have that same capability. It's not buried deep. It's right there, just beneath the noise of overthinking. Stop looking for it. Start being it. Taekwondo Sa wrote, "The mind must always be in the state of flowing. For when it stops anywhere, that means the flow is interrupted, and it is this interruption that is injurious to the well-being of the mind. Your mind was made to flow. Your life was made to move. So stop interrooting, stop analyzing, stop waiting, start flowing, and discover that Mushin isn't somewhere far away in a monastery or a dojo or ancient Japan. It's here now, in this moment. You just need to stop searching and begin moving. The path is walked, not thought. The sword is swung, not studied. Life is lived, not planned. So go, act, flow, and become the person you were always meant to be. The one who existed before fear taught you to freeze. That's Mushin. It's freedom. That's your life waiting for you. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below with the one action you'll take in the next 24 hours. Thank you for watching. Now go live.